when I was a kid, I loved playing video games, and I was a loner kid, and I didn't get out much, so I would make like these paper cutouts, and I had like a set of dominoes, and I would basically make my own video games. I would like chart them out and like attempt to play with them and like make these incredible things. I would do it with stuffed animals too. And interesting, that's kind of how I got started playwriting. I tend to write my scripts really fast and furiously. It took me about a week. I think it was about a week after I broke up with my boyfriend that I just wrote the script. I just sort of just got all that I needed to say out the page, and then I read it. I start looking at a chalkboard, and start structuring the play a little bit more. Get my feedback. And it's just basically going back to the script and wondering and just charting it. What needs to happen at this point? What needs to happen at this point? And seeing if everything is going to follow. And then we just read it again. See what comes out of that work. And just deepen it and deepen it and deepen it and deepen it and deepen it.
So I saw it at Playwrights Workshop, which is, we have some actors doing a semi-staged reading of the piece. And I didn't know much about video games at the time, but I was so drawn into it because it was this different world and it was so new and cool. So when I reread the script, I said, there's so much that can be done with this. And so I liked the challenge of figuring out, how do we make this world work for the audience, and then how do I do it in this small-ish space with this limited budget and in a limited period of time. One of the first two questions I ask myself is, what is this play about? What is the story? And then I ask myself, what do I want the audience to leave with at the end? But so I talk to the designers about that, and they say, okay, well, here are elements we can bring out to make that happen. You learn in any theater is that you can do any show in a black box with black cubes and make it convincing. But there are a lot of challenges here in storytelling, and so having the budget just helps us tell the story in different ways. Like there are creatures in here that are in the game world, and so having some money for costumes for them helps just to differentiate them, just to help us with a storytelling element. And so it's possible to do it without any of that. It's just nice to be able to give it some of the elements that you feel like the audience will crave, because they're things that I craved reading it.
When I start designing, I kind of draw like, my renderings are the ideal. If I had as much money as I wanted, this is how I would like them to look. So what I do is, I like to see what I have first. I go through stock, and I really go through stock, like all with a fine-tooth comb, if you want to be a little cliche. Sometimes I find these gems, sometimes it doesn't work. I think a really good example is Cage's character in the video game, Queen Whist. I see this beautiful, like, goddess essentially of like satin and just these shades of pinks and purple, these rich fabrics, drapey and flowy. To make that costume the way I see it, probably take my whole budget. So we compromise.
Sound cues. We've been going over sound since probably the first week of rehearsal, and that's unheard of in any play. Like this is just so sound heavy, and it depends so much on that, and the actors had to get used to it as well. So this was a first for sure on a lot of different fronts. That video games, or at least RPGs, and theater have one thing in common, and that's their very core, which is storytelling. So we had to constantly ask ourselves, which story are we telling? For sound, what that meant, at least musically speaking, was creating the mood and location and tying all of that in with that video game kind of thematic world, all the while not drawing too much attention to itself. The goal of a video game is to draw the player into the world of a video game. The goal in theater is to draw the audience into the world of the play. The music fits the mood, it fits the location, it helps keep the audience clear on what's going on, where they are, what they're fighting, and also the various spells and attacks that they use throughout all of these battle sequences.
And as a designer, I have to ask, what is absolutely essential to tell the story? Because you can add too much to a story, or you can strip too much away. And so in finding that balance, you start to look for the elements that are absolutely essential. Theater B has a very small footprint. It's only 32 feet wide by 16 feet deep. And when you add to that 4 actors and 2 movement actors, you can quickly eat up that space. We reflect, some of the gaming elements and some of the real-world elements, and we do it in ways that still allows the audience to fill in the rest of it with their imagination. And I think that it's really important that we treat the audience, or that the audience is able to participate. And that's what makes theater kind of a unique art, because we don't always fill in everything for them like they might in a film. We leave a lot of things untold, unsaid.
In lighting, you're that element that overlays over the top of everything and turns everything into the final product. So you can see costumes on a blank stage, or see costumes on a set, see a set with actors on it, and it looks like just one element. But when you put the lighting over top, it evens everything out, it balances, and it pulls the whole production together in a whole new level. The concept I've had from the beginning is that, based off the script and our discussions, the real world is boring, it's kind of murky, and so the lighting for the real world will have some subtle shadows and texture that makes it look not as clean and crisp and sharp, whereas the game world will be beautiful, vibrant colors, it'll be sharp lines, it's very definite, whereas the real world is kind of wishy-washy.
I keep looking at the stage because it's like I can't believe it. Like, I really can't. Like, there are actors and there's a director, and there are people who believe in this play, and that it could really happen, and it's really nerve-wracking, and it's really powerful, and I'm like terrified. I'm terrified of what's going to happen. But I know if all goes well, it legitimizes something for me that this is okay. And that I'm not such a crazy playwright after all. I'm not such a crazy person, an educator, and that there was a point to what I'm doing.